Welcome to Leadership Unfiltered, the podcast where real leaders get real about what it takes to succeed in today's fast-paced corporate world. I'm Dr. Dayan Douse, founder and president of P.R.I.D.E Consulting, a human behavior and development company serving as an executive coach and facilitator, working with organizations to deliver practical ways to evolve teams, advance organizations, and transform cultures. I hold a PhD in organization and management with over 2 decades of leadership experience in Fortune 500 companies. And I'm best-selling co-author of the book, Nothing But Net. I'm joined by my co-host, Phillip Smith. And Phillip is a seasoned technology executive with extensive experience leading large-scale engineering teams and driving digital transformation. Over his 25 years of leadership experience, he has held multiple roles from supervisor to vice president. His personal brand is coder by blood, architect by trade, and leader by choice. Every episode will deliver real-world strategies, unfiltered advice, and the tools you'll need to take your leadership to the next level. Let's get started. So today's topic is leading high-performing teams. And if you've ever been fortunate enough to lead a high-performing team, it is a blessing and truly amazing in terms of responsibility, productivity, innovation of that team. One of the things that was amazing on one of the teams that I led that was high performing is volunteerism, in that whenever there are things that need to get done, people just volunteer on a high performing team. They know what needs to be done and they don't wait to be asked. They will just jump in and get those things done. So it is an amazing experience to lead a high-performing team. And as a coach, I don't get many coaching requests for leaders who are leading high-performing performing teams. They don't have a need for me. But the question is, how do you recognize what are some of the characteristics of a high-performing team? And how do you create a high-performing team? And so we'll delve into this topic a little bit and talk more about high-performing teams.
One of the characteristics of a high-performing team for me, you mentioned volunteerism, and that's an engagement, and there's high levels of engagement. But for me, there's 2 things that come to mind. The first is, for me, it's like clockwork. Things tick along. There's a cadence.
There's a rhythm.
Rhythm, thank you. There's a rhythm to life. And that rhythm of life allows people to live.
Yes.
And when you have a high-performing team, it's less about heroism.
Yes.
And it's about, because you've got that rhythm of life, people are able to lean in and lean back. People are able to take vacations. People are able to go to their kids' recital without having to get a page and step out and miss important life events. You have a high-performing team. You have balance. One of the and there's a difference between, I shouldn't say a difference, the experience of leading a high-performing team and being on a high-performing leadership team is a different experience.
Yes.
And I've had the pleasure of leading high-performance teams. And I've also had the pleasure of being part of a high-performing leadership team.
Yes.
And those are very different experiences. And they similar characteristics, but it's a different experience. And being on a high-performing leadership team is, if you get the opportunity and to experience it glides, because there's a synchronicity to operations, there's a synchronicity to how you handle customer, there's a synchronicity to how you operate as a unit. There's a unification of commander's intent.
Say more about commander's intent. I'm not sure everybody knows what you mean when you say that.
So you can give direction. I need you to do A, B, C, and have that person do A, B, C, right? That's direction. Then there's also intention. What is it that we're trying to accomplish? What's the goal? And you're not given specific direction. You're giving the intent. And then you are left to figure out how to accomplish that. Because if you have the intent, you've got that flexibility to figure it out. Now that flexibility can become a hindrance if people on the team are off interpreting that intent differently and incorporating that into their own goals and how they need to be successful, because their success is not conditional on the unit's success.
Yes.
But when you're on a high performing leadership team, that commander's intent unifies and it says, okay, because you can't be successful without me, and I can't be successful without you. Your team cannot be successful without my team, and my team cannot be successful without your team, because the commander's intent talks to the broader success.
Yes.
And if you have that, and you're able to strip away the egos, and you're able to strip away the one-upmanship, and you're able to strip away the, who's in the leader's ear, who's they're going to listen to, because I've been on those teams too.
Yes.
But if you get to a place where you're on a leadership team where that leader cares about the goal and cares about winning and cares about making sure that we all get there together, man.
Yes.
It's something special. And that's something that I try to create for my teams, regardless of whether or not I'm part of a high-performing leadership team or not, right?
Yes.
Of course, being part of a high-performing leadership team makes that a little bit easier, but it's not a requirement.
Yes. That's good. I appreciate that. That's good. One of the things you said is, on high-performing teams, they get that we win and lose together, right? And so you get, and when I say volunteerism, not only for a specific ask or activity, but they will jump in to help each other, right? Because they recognize the failure of one is the failure of all, and they don't want to see their teammate fail. And so I have seen in your coder world where the coding community will get together. They all have kind of their own individual task on a project, and some finish before others. But instead of saying, okay, I'm done with mine and going on to something else, they will loop back, see what other work needs to be done and who's working on it, and then I would walk into a room or a conference room and see just a group of developers in a huddle trying to figure out where this person might be stuck, because they realize they can't succeed even though their piece is done. They're going to loop back and help the other developers so that they can get their piece done, so they can hit that project timeline and meet all the deliverables. So I've seen that work in action, and it is just a pleasure to be around. And then one of the things is, how do you lead a high-performing team? I've had the pleasure of joining a high-performing team. So that team had been together many years, probably 7 or 8 years, as a complete unit the whole time together and high-performing. Everybody knew their role. They were experts in the space. They handled a lot of key and critical components of the entire organization. And when I joined that team, my first thought as a leader was to get out of their way, to stay out of their way, right? That I didn't need to come in and make wholesale changes and, kind of my bravado, I'm the leader, so I'm going to come in and show you that I'm the leader. I let them be the experts that they were. In the meantime, they taught me a lot about what they were doing. And we just got that rhythm, right? Of this is how we do things. This is how we operate. And it was awesome. That team, like I said, just had a bunch of experts on it, and to see them function as a true team. They already kind of knew bits and pieces of each other's jobs. So while they were never required to do the other person's job, they could pick up and say, oh, well, we shouldn't forget this step, even though it wasn't in their responsibility or their role. They could then say, I remember, right, that we used to do it this way, and is that still a good way to do it? And they would remind me, we're going to need you to clear these roadblocks and these hurdles for us in order to keep this rhythm and to keep us moving and to hit these timelines. Here's what we need from you. And they would tease me and say, look, we don't want to train another leader. So while you think you're coming in here and going to lead us in a certain way and do all these things, let me just tell you, we're going to train you how to lead us. Mm-hmm. And they did just that by sharing with me what they needed from me. And so that made me a better leader. It kept me from micromanaging. Because that team was a veteran team that already had a space to thrive in, they just helped me with how best to lead them. And so it changed. I was used to coming in and making wholesale changes and giving direction and dealing with low performers. There was no low performers. Now, I should also say that just because it was a high-performing team, that does not equate to everybody on the team being above and beyond expectations contributor, right? So everybody wasn't exceeding expectations, but together as a team, they were high-performing, and anything we threw at them, they could handle. And so it's just been a really good experience.
And so I'm gonna say what you said, but more directly.
Yeah.
Which is not everyone on a high-performing team needs to be a high performer. Mm-hmm. In fact, you can have a high-performing team that includes some low performers.
Yes. True. So true.
Because what we're talking about is the performance of the team.
Yes.
Which requires, and another attribute of high-performing teams is diversity. Mm-hmm. you, in a high performing team, you're going to need the people who are the heroes, who will put on that cape and will dive in. You also need the people who will not necessarily put on a cape, but they are there every single day.
Yes.
Day in, day out, they're there. They don't have to go and put on a different identity to show up with the cape.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they're there every day, grinding it out. And you also need the people who are the heart and soul of the team.
Yes.
The folks that are keeper of the flame.
Yes.
And sometimes the keeper of the flame can be tagged as a low performer.
Ooh.
Because the keeping of the flame isn't seen as valuable work.
Yes. Yes.
Because it's not directly tied to an output.
Right.
Because keeping the team up as a cohesive unit, right, is valuable work. And the keeper of the flame is valued. And so you have to make sure that if you have a low performer, that you truly have a low performer.
Yes.
And what typically happens is low performers tend to exit high performing teams.
Yes.
They tend to not, true low performers tend to exit. But oftentimes, low performers that are tagged in high performing teams aren't really low performers. It's that what they're performing isn't valued by the leader.
Ooh. That's good. That's good. Glad you said that, 'cause that's absolutely true. Absolutely true. Where I thought you were going to add to that was the low performer doesn't stay low performing because the high performers on the team elevate that low performer, and they want to see how that team operates. They want to succeed and make sure that team can succeed, and so they pick up.
Yes.
They step up their performance to do so they don't stay low performing long if they are true low performers, because they just it's like playing on a championship team. You know, everybody is not an all-star.
Yes.
Or a superstar on the team.
Yes.
But those folks that just do their jobs day in and day out, like you said, and those who want to be on the starting team then start to work harder because they see what it takes to be on that starting team. And so that's also a good attribute of a high-performing team.
And an important piece that's the leader's responsibility, and this is really, really important and sometimes difficult, is that the leader has to prioritize the performance of the team over the performance of individuals.
Yes.
Now, that doesn't mean you don't hold people accountable. You absolutely do that. But you have to prioritize the performance of the whole over the performance of any individual part. And because performance, typically in corporate America, is individual. So you have individual performance reviews.
Yes.
That are mandated by HR. That doesn't mean you can't have a team performance review. In fact, you should.
Yes.
In fact, in order for you to have a high performance team, you have to have a team performance review.
Yes.
And while those aren't necessarily mandated by HR traditionally, you have to have them, because that is where you are able to have that conversation. And I would submit you should have more team-based performance reviews than you do have individual ones. Because it's in those conversations that you are able to reinforce how important it is that you win together.
Yes.
And you're able to reinforce what the win is.
Yes. 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 Great point. And as the leader of a high-performing team, in my experience, right or wrong, I've protected that team for who joins it. Now, there's been instances where I've safeguarded the team from what I perceived as a low performer.
Interesting. Say more.
And I said, well, no, there's a spot on the team, and there's been an individual whose name has come up as a possibility for filling that spot. And I would look at past performance history, individual, and I said, no, I don't want that person on that team. Now, that's not, I look back on that experience and say that I could have done something better. That was not good leadership. But at the time, I was trying to safeguard what I thought was a high-performing team and what I perceived would be dragging or slowing that team down and impacting the engagement of that team. That goes against my earlier statement that a high-performing team can uplift a low performer and give them the space to make some mistakes because the high-performing team can overcome those quicker than other teams might be able to. And it's all in the demonstration, right? You can say what you want, but until you see a high-performing team in action, from a low performer standpoint, you don't really know what that looks like. And so I believe maybe an opportunity to have somebody come into that space, but that's, that was just my leadership at the moment. I tried to protect that team from a low performer.
Yeah, I think I'm going to say this. A team that needs protecting isn't high performing. Because a high performing team has the agility, it has the flexibility, the adaptability, all of those things are attributes of a high performing team, and you don't have to protect them.
Yes.
Now, I'm not saying that you just let anybody join your team. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
That's not what I'm saying. But my criteria is less about their previous performance and more about their previous ability to collaborate. Are they a team player?
Yes.
If you're not a team player, then I don't want you on the team.
Yes.
But if you're a team player and you're struggling, come. If there's a spot for you, come.
Yes.
And either A, your performance will uplift and we will continue to work, or your performance won't, and 9 times out of 10, they self-select out.
Yes.
Because they don't want to work that hard. And sometimes they don't. And that's fine. You can go find something else to do.
Yes.
But I would say if you're going to protect the team, I would say it's around people who aren't team players.
That's good.
And there are people out there who are heroes, but don't want to be part of the Avengers.
Yes.
And that's okay.
Yes.
Right? If you don't want to be part of the Avengers, that's cool.
Yes.
But just because you're a hero doesn't mean you're not a team player.
Yes.
And so that would be my criteria.
Yeah, that's good.
I would offer from the leader's perspective in terms of, we talked about managing high performance team. One of the things that you need to do in order to create one. And we talked a bit about making sure you're prioritizing the performance of the team over the performance of individuals. But another thing that is key, in addition to creating those events where you're talking about what the win is and reinforcing that, is making sure that they see the dependencies between each other.
Yes.
Because it's very easy and it will be natural for them to want to create a dependency with you. And to come to you for things. And while that is good and that relationship needs to be healthy, in order for a high-performing team, they need to be able to operate not independently, but interdependently.
Yes.
And I would say if you can get to a point where they operate more organically, where they are also documenting what they do. I'm not saying don't write anything down. But the processes are able to shift and change with the context that they're operating in, and they're able to do that without you.
Yes.
The leader,
Yes.
that is a high-performing team, and they're able to adjust on the fly. But your responsibility as a leader is to drive that, is to create the environment where that happens, which means you've got to intentionally cross-pollinate. You have to intentionally give something that would have gone to someone else. Be like, by rights, this is Bob's, but I'm going to give it to Sue.
Right.
Or by rights, this is Carl's, but I'm going to give it to Bob. And so you have to create the environment where those cross-dependencies happen. And be explicit about it so that Bob doesn't feel like, oh, did the leader give that to Sue because I'm failing? No, be really deliberate about why you're doing it.
Yes.
And create that environment where they can then, not necessarily, to your point, do each other's job fully, but they have an awareness and appreciation for what they do. Yes. Because it's through those exchanges that knitting of the high performance begins to happen. Because Sue may be able to see something because Bob's been doing it the same way for 3 years.
Right.
And Sue's like, well, I did it this way and it saved me like 5 hours. And making it safe for that to happen is very important. So the leader really has to be deliberate in not necessarily breaking molds, because molds are good because they allow for repeatability, but shaking it up a bit.
That's good. I like that. I like that. And what you brought to mind for me is that cross-pollination, people understanding each other's roles, what they're responsible for, also requires you as a leader to know your team's strengths and to know your team individually, right? To know when to shift it from Bob to Sue. To know not only their strengths, but their capacity. What's going on the team so that, the team can pick up for each other where they need to. And that high-performing team, you trust them and know that they can pick up that additional responsibility. And quite frankly, on a high-performing team, they know it in most cases before the leader does, right?
Yes,
So,
as they should.
That's right. All right. Well, so leading a high-performing team as a leader can be an absolute joy.
Yes.
It will shape you as a leader in a whole different way than leading a team that's not high-performing. But in order to create that culture, you need to trust that team. You need to listen to that team. You need to check your ego at the door. You need to also still provide direction for that team as your responsibility, and allow them the space to do what they do best, which is to execute on that mission and to get you where you're trying to go, in the direction you're trying to go. And so if you are not leading a high-performing team, the strategies to building that high-performing team would be not only just around picking high performers, but it's around, are they willing to learn and collaborate and be in a space that they can contribute to a team that's moving towards high performing? And so try to employ those strategies to build a high performing team. And if you already have one, or you're going into a situation like I was, where you're stepping into a team that's already high performing, my suggestion is just stay out of the way. Let them continue to high perform, and your job is to provide that direction, remove those hurdles and roadblocks so that they can continue to execute on the mission. All right, with that, we'll see you next time.
Thanks for tuning in to Leadership Unfiltered. We hope you have found value in our conversation and are ready to take action in your leadership journey. If you enjoyed this episode, subscribe, share, and leave us a review. And don't forget to connect with us on social media for more leadership insights and resources. Until next time, keep leading with purpose.